Good morning, everyone. We're going to let a few more folks trickle in and then we will get started with our webinar. And Jillian, we don't see the deck anymore if you want to pull it up.
Yes, I see it.
Oh, really? I don't see it. Okay, well, if everyone else can see it, then that's good.
Maria, do you see it? Okay.
Okay, good. All right, let me see if I can go to a different view to be able to see. All right. Okay, I see it now on my other view. Okay. Hi, everyone. We have a good group here, so I think we can get started. We are going to begin by just running through a few housekeeping notes before we jump into the content. Okay, so this is a webinar format, so all of you are muted, but we do have a Q&A box where you can share questions throughout the program. We will answer questions at the midpoint and then at the end of the presentation. So please use that box for questions. Also, if you have any technical issues with the Zoom, you can enter those there. This webinar is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the DFSS YouTube channel, and we'll send information following the webinar to everyone who attended today and registered. Just wanted to note that anything stated at this webinar is not intended to change the solicitation document, that RFP. Any changes that are made will be written into an addendum that we issue this month. The purpose of this webinar is really just to provide information for the solicitation. And just a final note that we retain the right to share a list of registrations to this webinar and contact information. Briefly run through our agenda for this morning. So we're going to start with some background around DFSS, Youth Services Division, and the Safe Spaces for Youth program and My Shine My Future. We'll talk about the requirements for this program specifically, the selection criteria that we'll be using to review RFP submissions, our timeline for reviewing and programming, and then we will have some time to talk about technical assistance and using the e-procurement system. And then again, we will close out with some additional questions. So to start us off, I'm going to turn it over. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Tess Landon. I am the project manager for My Shine My Future at the DFSS Youth Services Division. I'm joined by my colleagues Maria and Claire, who I will let introduce themselves when they speak, and Jillian Black, who is on our procurement team. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria to kick us off with an overview of our program.
Good morning, everyone. Jillian, if you could just go back one slide. Maybe then go forward.
It looks like it's different, Maria, so you can just give a general overview.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Maria Guzman Rocha. I am the Senior Director of the Enrichment Portfolio here at DFSS. And as you all know, when you registered, the purpose of this RFP is to fund community-based organizations to deliver our My Shine My Future Safe Spaces for Youth initiative. Tess and Claire will get more into that and more about what the RFP is requesting. If you could move forward one, I think. Maybe one more.
I think it's just the slide gap is not there, Maria, so you can just talk about DFSS. And sorry, folks. We'll update the deck we'll share.
No worries. I just came on here to share a little bit more about DFSS in general and our youth division. So wanted to share that we are a social services organization, funder and administrator that provides services to the most vulnerable Chicagoans. We have 3 portfolios under our youth services division: our prevention and intervention portfolio, our youth employment portfolio, and our enrichment portfolio. And the My Shine My Future work sits within that enrichment portfolio. And that really just provides opportunities for both community-based opportunities and citywide opportunities to provide young people with out of school time experiences and enriching opportunities for them to build relationships and skills in their lives. And so we are talking about our Safe Spaces for Youth program. And that is one of our 3 community-based strategies within our My Shine My Future initiative. This is the focus of this RFP. We have a Community Youth Opportunity Collaborative program, formerly known as Community Anchor Organization program. That RFP is forthcoming, and the micro grant program, and that information about grant opportunities for that will be coming soon. So we're really excited to be with you here today. Tess and Claire are going to talk you through the RFP. We're probably going to say this multiple times, but we ask that you download the RFP, you print it, you go through it extensively before you start writing, because a lot of the information and questions that you are going to have as you see the application and you see the questions will be answered in the RFP. So we highly recommend that you and your team look through it. If you have been part of our program and have either attended a kickback or been part of our events, a lot of the stuff will look familiar, but as always, we want to continuously improve. And so we've made a few shifts in order to take some of the lessons that we've learned and implement those. So I'll pass it back to Tess and the team, and we are excited to see your applications.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to get a little bit more into the content of what the Safe Spaces for Youth program looks like. So the overall goal of the Safe Spaces for Youth initiative is to provide youth with safe, engaging events planned and hosted by their peers during key out-of-school times. The Safe Spaces events, which we call kickbacks, are designed to strengthen local youth opportunity ecosystems through ensuring that young people, and our target age range for this RFP is really teens and young adults ages 13 to 24, have youth-driven out-of-school time opportunities. The paid component for youth who are ages 16 to 24 supports work readiness and social development by providing positive mentorship and leadership training that builds participants' confidence and professional and social skills. So this is really an employment program, but it's about, whole person mentorship. So there's more there than necessarily and a more traditional employment program. Next slide. And actually, I'm sorry, Jillian, if we can go back just to one, I just want to reiterate in the slide before this one that really what in the one before. That really, in terms of who we're seeking for this RFP, again, because those are the 2 critical components of this program, we're really looking to fund delegate agencies who are able to demonstrate experience both with implementing a paid youth program rooted in positive youth development and mentorship, and also planning and executing successful community events. So both of those things are really critical to success with this program. So we want to make sure that folks are coming in with both of those areas of experience. All right, thanks, Jillian. So a little bit of background, Maria mentioned, but the Safe Spaces for Youth program falls within the larger My Shine My Future initiative. This initiative is overseen by DFSS in partnership with the mayor's office, and it was launched in 2019, includes both citywide and community-based strategies, which I will get into shortly. And really the goal of all of our My Shine My Future programming is to achieve the My Shine My Future vision statement. So I won't read through this because it's rather lengthy, but it is in the RFP, and I do encourage you to really take a look at that because, again, we want to make sure that our programming is aligning with that vision statement. Next slide. All right, so the My Shine My Future citywide strategy, as I mentioned, is that includes our My Shine My Future website, our app, citywide events, the Teen Bash that happened last weekend, and campaigns such as Fall Fest and other things that really celebrate opportunities for young people around the city. And then again, our community strategy includes our Safe Spaces program, our formerly Youth Community Anchor Organizations program, and our microgrants program. And you will hear more about those other opportunities coming soon. But today we're focused on Safe Spaces for Youth. Next slide. All right, so more specifically, the 3 pillars of the My Shine My Future community strategy that we, again, want to ensure that our Safe Spaces for Youth program and our other community initiatives are aligned with are these pillars that I'll read through here. So 1, activate and convene a network of caring adults, strengthen the opportunity ecosystem for Chicago's youth, and connect youth to opportunities that center their voice and choice. And then again, just a little bit of background here. Between 2023 and 25, DFSS operated the year-round Safe Spaces for Youth program, which looks very similar in many ways to the program that we're talking about today. That program was funded with American Rescue Plan Act dollars and was developed really specifically to respond to the impact of pandemic-related harms on young people and communities. That program was very successful, met and exceeded outcomes, but like Maria said, this program, wants to reflect lessons learned, input from our delegate agencies and from young people, the available funding now, and current priorities for positive youth development and community safety. So there are some small changes to reflect those things, but generally the program has the same ethos. All right, I'm going to get into our target population before we talk a little bit about the actual components of the program. So the focus of this RFP is on agencies who are based in one of the My Shine My Future community strategy regions. We'll share those shortly. The community areas that fall within these strategy regions were identified because they rank amongst the highest scoring community areas on the Chicago Health Atlas Hardship Index, which is a composite measure that incorporates a number of factors and enables comparisons across geography to identify areas of need. The My Shine My Future community initiatives are also aligned with the Mayor's Office of Community Safety People's Plan for Community Safety. So that program identifies 15 target community areas. All of those community areas fall within our community strategy regions. On the next slide, we have a few of our eligibility requirements that are really critical to understand. So first, delegates must have an address and conduct youth activities, meetings, and events within the region they apply to serve. So again, regions may have one or more community areas with them. You must have an address within one of the community areas within the region that you're applying for. You don't necessarily need to have a building that you own within that community area. You don't necessarily need to have a lease, but it can't be that you are running program out of somebody else's space or that you have a newly signed MOU or agreement that you can run this program out of a space where you haven't previously done programming. So we're really going to be asking for folks in their responses to be able to demonstrate that they will and have been conducting programming at an address, again, within the community area that you intend to serve. And then something slightly different from our previous version of this program is that in this case, delegates will primarily still serve their home region. That's really the focus of your program, but you may elect to employ young people and engage youth for events from directly neighboring community areas. So we understand that some folks may serve, a directly neighboring community area and really see that as part of their community. And we don't want you to have to turn away young people from an event who feel like they're part of your community because of, an address that falls over a specific line. Another change from last time that's important to note is that multiple applications by the same agency will not be considered, even if they're for different regions. So you may only apply to serve one community strategy region, and in turn, if funded, you will only serve one community strategy region. On the next slide, you can see a list of the community strategy regions and the right column, the City of Chicago community areas that are served within those regions. So mostly this is a one-to-one. You'll see in a few areas we have used maybe more of the colloquial community name for a community area like back of the yards. The Chicago community area technically is New City, so I know folks use both of those, but some of our community strategy regions have slightly different names. And then you'll see a few cases if you look down to Garfield Park, for example, where there are multiple community areas served in the region. So Garfield Park serves both East Garfield Park and West Garfield Park. And those groupings were made during the initial iteration of the Safe Spaces program with community members from those areas. And then in terms of eligibility and target population for young people participating in the program, so youth employees must be between the ages of 16 and 24. They must be 16 by the day that programming starts. And the day that they turn 24, they need to be graduated out of the program. So that's something to plan ahead for. They must reside or attend school in the target region. And again, there's a little bit of flexibility there, but they should really be connected to that community. We're not bringing young people from across the city to participate in program within your community area. And then there are a number of requirements for youth employment that are listed here in terms of, Chicago residency, a valid CPS or state ID, and consent forms. And then I'm not going to read through all of these, but you can find in the RFP a list of our underrepresented populations that the Youth Services Division programs more broadly seek to recruit from and engage. So we encourage you in recruiting young people for your program to look to bring on youth who are from these underrepresented populations, just to make sure that young people who are sometimes underserved through our programming are represented through the Safe Spaces program. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire to talk through the actual requirements and activities outlined in the Safe Spaces program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Myers. I'm the Youth Service Coordinator that supports the Safe Spaces program, and we're going to get into it. So through this program, we are really asking folks to support the broader My Shy, My Future community strategy vision. So this applies to the Anchor program, micro grants, and Safe Spaces, which is really around centering youth voice and choice, providing safe space for youth to spend time during out of school windows, offer developmentally appropriate activities, and encourage young people to develop connections amongst one another and caring adults, kind of really leaning into positive youth development as a foundation of the program. Next slide. All right, so for this RFP, the program requirements include implementing a paid youth program, which will qualify here to different than an employment program. This is a cohort model. So an agency would be employing and creating curriculum for that full group of 15 young people. Additionally, you are administering the kickback events. As an agency, you will hire and manage a program coordinator that will really oversee this work. You will gather and share event and participant data, and that you will ensure that the young people and your agency is kind of connected to the broader work of My Shy, My Future, the network and the platform. All right, so the program activities. When we talk about implementing a paid youth program, what that entails is recruiting and retaining youth. Like Tess said, the youth participants must be between the ages of 16 and 24, and you will maintain an enrollment of 15 young people throughout the entire program. So again, maybe different than other kind of employment programs, this is an agency working with that entire group, working together as like a collective unit. Work hours should be based on the schedule that we'll outline on the next slide. And then again, youth need to reside or attend school in the region. You will also develop a curriculum. So maybe also a little different than a traditional employment program. This program is really about that learning. It's about that kind of group work happening together. So the agency is going to develop a curriculum that is aligned with the deliverables in this RFP. You will guide you through event planning, to actually execute those kickback events, integrating youth voice in all stages of the program design. So a cornerstone of this is kind of by youth for youth. So really centering that youth voice kind of in all of the program activities. Agency needs to provide youth with a consistent work schedule and a work site within the community, like Tess said, and that work is happening fully in person. Additionally, agencies will need to provide mentorship for participating youth. And so this can look like a variety of things, but really this idea that it's positive youth development, it is a learning training program rather than just like an employment piece. There's a strong level of youth development happening. Agencies will need to administer payroll for youth, and youth will be hired as W-2 employees. So this is a slight change from previous model. So youth do need to be hired as W-2 employees. Pay needs to be aligned with current minimum wage, and the agency will need to do all of the kind of compliance elements that go along with paying youth in a timely manner on a bi-weekly basis. And you, as an agency, will also support youth with participating in a variety of DFSS, MCMF trainings and opportunities. Those need to be built into the work schedule, and the agency is required to, support youth with transportation, with understanding, the work schedule to fit those in. All right, so here's what the work schedule looks like. Agencies do have the ability to set their own schedules that work with, youth, timing and your staff timing, but it does need to kind of fall within this model. So in the summer, it is an eight-week session with about 20 hours per week, totaling about 160 hours per youth. And in the fall and the winter, it's 14 weeks, about 10 hours per week. Those hours can be maybe a little bit flexible based on the needs, but we are looking at each young person working towards 300 total hours kind of throughout this program. All right, when it comes to kickback events, so we call them kickbacks, but these are the cornerstone of the program. These are the community events. The agency, is required to implement those. So kickback events do need to happen during key out of school time windows. So again, when you're thinking about your agency's capacity, kickback events are happening on weekends, evenings, and school breaks when other opportunities are not available for young folks. There are two types of events. So one is a youth and community event. Agencies will need to plan for 3 of those throughout the program cycle. These are, kind of broader community events. Events should still target a teen and young adult population. So our audience for this is kind of that 13 to 24-year-old group of young folks, but youth and community events can, engage the broader family and are kind of larger events. So each of those events should be kind of working towards an audience of about 150. And then the other part of the kickback events are teen and young adult focused events. There will be 6 of these throughout the year. These are smaller events because they are tied to an age population. You are only looking at engaging 13 to 24-year-olds within these events. And these can be, again, smaller, kind of working towards that audience of about 50. So in total, there'll be 9 events that the agency needs to have young people plan, broken into 3 community events, 6 teen and young adult only events. Alongside planning and administering these kickback events, there's some additional components. So you are looking with these events to engage the young folks and the community members from your community area and region, and kind of the young folks from there. Again, like Tess said earlier, we're not necessarily looking to have youth come, travel from a different community area to come to your event. Your goal is to be engaging the folks that live in the community you're serving. Again, we want to reiterate that 6 events need to specifically target teen and young adult populations. Our teens and young adults continue to say there is not enough opportunities for them as a population in the evening and weekends. So that is who the target for these events is. You will need to establish internal financial structures that ensure that events will not be impacted by inability to pay for event-related costs in a timely manner. This is one I would say as an agency to also really sit with. Because young people are the ones planning these events, having a level of flexibility with funding is going to be an essential component to be successful and to meet that cornerstone of this program. And we know that, financial structures can be complex, but again, an inability to allow youth to make financial decisions is, something I would sit with as an agency. You will need to ensure that kickbacks are authentically youth-led. Like we said from the beginning, this is a by youth for youth model. So youth participants must be active leaders in event planning. So they should be identifying themes and activities. They should be leading outreach. They should be supporting budgeting. They should be doing the day of jobs. It is really about empowering them to be the event hosts and the event planners. Coordinators should manage event logistics as needed and, can make some decisions, but they, again, are really cultivating a space where the youth get to have that ownership. And then along with that, ensuring that the target audience is reached. So that is something that we monitor at DFSS, and we will work with agencies and have regular check-ins on if on if people are showing up for events, because we can do all the great work in event planning, but if young people and community are not showing up to the events, then that will be a data point that we're kind of constantly in conversation with agencies about. Alongside this, you will need to manage the event planning logistics. So making sure that spaces that events are held are safe and accessible and appropriate. With the support from the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, provides reasonable accommodations. Events need to have activities and food and entertainment. They need to be fun. Events, at their core are meant to be fun. So really thinking about what kind of can go alongside that. You need to be overseeing the strategic outreach and timely outreach that folks, again, show up. You can collaborate with, local agencies to plan and to host and to have resources. Another cornerstone is collecting data from event participants. So there will be training for this for the agencies, but actually collecting the data that, we will require is one of the main logistical components of the actual kickbacks. And you need to prepare for emergency plans for weather or for unforeseen circumstances. With this too, delegate agencies are given the option of collaborating with another safe space or a youth community anchor organization to co-host one event. So that could be working with another community area to host maybe a larger or collaborative event. This is the schedule for kickback. So agencies, again, can decide when exactly the events take place, but they do need to happen in the evening, in the weekends, or out of school time. We are not looking for events to be necessarily held at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, because our target population is 13 to 24-year-olds, and most likely those 13 to 24-year-olds will be sleeping or have other obligations during that time. So in the summer, it is one youth and community event. Again, that's that larger kind of event, and then 3 teen and young adult events. And then in the fall to winter, 2 youth and community events and 3 teen young adult events, working towards a total of 9 events. One event in the fall does need to align with the Fall Fest schedule that kind of is part of the broader My Shine, My Future initiative. All right, the agencies that will be required to hire and manage a program coordinator. And so some of the key functions there are, overseeing that somebody is in that position or reassigning that position. That program coordinator really is the, leader of this work. They'll be the main point of contact for us at DFSS. The coordinator is the one, instructing the youth program, is the one attending kickbacks. And kind of implementing this work, ensuring that the program coordinators have the right training, that balance of positive youth development and event planning, and ensuring that that program coordinator goes through all kind of required background check processes to work with young people. That program coordinator is attending all of the meetings that we set at DFSS. And kind of includes all of the oversight, all of the compliance elements of this work. So not only are they leading the program with the youth, they're kind of responsible for all the back end administrative components as well. I talked through this a little bit already, but program coordinators, they're the ones implementing this work. They need to have backgrounds in positive youth development. They need to be able to build strong relationships with young people, facilitate team building. They will engage youth in wraparound services as needed. Developing strategies to keep those young people engaged, helping with recruitment or onboarding of new youth. They will be managing student work hours and timesheets. And implementing performance measurement tools with youth as needed. Program coordinators, again, need to be the ones overseeing this work. They are a position you either need to be able to hire for, or you can reassign someone. We do not necessarily have age requirements for this role. The program coordinator schedule somewhat mirrors the youth work schedule, but kind of more weeks and more hours so that they have time to plan and do all of the administrative components. So looking at a 10-week summer session with about 26 hours per week, and then about a 16-week fall-winter schedule with about 15 hours a week. Again, this can be flexible based on your agency's exact work schedule, but this is the model that we kind of recommend. All right, so another part of implementing this work is gathering event and participant data. So one component is making sure that all of the data gets submitted to DFSS in our databases. As it relates to paid youth participant data, that's all things related to the onboarding and the administrative oversight of young people. So that's intake forms, that's consent forms, that's tracking youth hours. That is a big and time-consuming piece. Ensuring that young people do surveys, kind of connecting to that payroll piece, making sure that all of that is accurately managed. As it relates to kickback data, we have a survey that agencies are required to collect from guests. So making sure that young people are actually administering that kickback survey. Collecting photos, testimonials, kind of general event planning oversight, and some of the data that goes alongside that. And there also are progress reports that are submitted quarterly, and occasional additional surveys and data points that we at DFSS might request agencies administer. Like Tess mentioned at the beginning, or maybe Maria mentioned, part of My Shine My Future is a larger platform. So that's a website, app, and Instagram, where really the goal there is to ensure that folks around the city know about opportunities available to young people. So part of the goal of this work is that agencies will help connect your young people, but also the folks that are attending events to the broader My Shine My Future platform. But you can read those slides on your own. All right, so this is a sample budget. This is how we might recommend spending down this funding. And Tessa, I'm still talking, or do I actually pass it back to you now?
Yeah, I'll jump back.
Okay, thank you.
So we can take a break. Sorry, I'm turning my video back on. All right, so yes, this is a sample budget breakdown per delegate agency. So the total funding per delegate for a contract year for this program is $156,625. I won't go through everything here, but just highlighting a couple of things. So youth wages, you'll see, are the majority of the program costs associated with safe spaces. The requirement is that youth are paid minimum wage. So technically, this is actually $16.60 at the moment. It has not been actually raised for summer 2026, but you need to be in alignment with current minimum wage. We have a recommended cost for your program coordinator. And then we have, again, some sort of recommended cost per event for community events, which are slightly larger, and then those teen and young adult events. And then some additional costs that really are intended to support the young people who are part of your program with transportation needs, food for them when they're at, attending program work hours, and other supportive services related to their employment. On the next slides, I have some more details about the budgets. So the terms of this contract will be from June 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2026. Based on need, availability of funds, and the performance of our delegate agencies, DFSS may extend this term up to 4 additional years, with each contract extension lasting 1 additional year. I said the amount for the RFP. The administrative cap for this program is 15%. There is no match requirement for this program. So some other DFSS, Youth Services Division programs do have a match requirement. This one does not. Although the contract period for this 2026 year is slightly shorter than the full year, we are still asking you to submit a budget for a full year. The majority of programming happens during the summer, fall, and winter. But again, you're going to be submitting a budget that covers the entire, January to December, technically, period. When you submit your budget as part of your application, ensure that you apply for your program's actual costs and that the costs align with the program and the program activities and requirements that Claire just reviewed. And then there will be a question in the budget where you can discuss how you determine those costs and how they're reflected in your budget. A few additional details. Oh, sorry, I thought there were a couple of additional details regarding budget. Nope. Okay, so now I'm going to get into, sorry, Jillian, no. I think I said everything. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the performance measures. So these are the things that Claire talked a little bit about, the data, the surveys that we're gathering. These are the things that we will be measuring throughout the contract period along with you in order to ensure the success of this program. There may be additional things that we are collecting, but really we're looking at these performance measures related to the paid youth program and the kickback events. So in terms of the paid youth program, We, like Claire said, want to ensure that 15 young people are enrolled for the duration of each program period. So we have sort of these distinct periods during the summer and then the fall, winter. During any time that you're doing youth programming, you should be fully enrolled. Our expectation is that throughout the entire contract period, 95% of total available youth work hours will be utilized by the delegate. This will take some planning. We provide supports around this, but we really want to make sure that those dollars that are set aside for youth wages get into the hands and pockets of young people. 85% of youth should complete all available weeks of the program period for which they are enrolled. So again, we have these sort of two distinct program periods, but if a young person is enrolled in the summer period of 8 weeks, they should be completing 85%. 85% of your 15 youth should be completing the full program. And then we have some all youth events, such as our program kickoff. We do a speaker series throughout the summer, and the expectation is that 85% of the youth who are enrolled will attend all of those events. All right, in terms of our performance measures for youth satisfaction, so these performance measures are collected via a survey that DFSS provides, and we are looking for 100% of young people to be paid on time. And then 90% is our goal for the following measures. So youth reporting, gaining new skills or improving existing skills, reporting feeling connected to at least one caring adult or mentor connected to the program, report feeling connected with their peers in the program, report feeling that their program offered them a safe place to be, and report feeling that the program experience helped them strengthen or build new connections with their community. Moving into our performance measures for our kickback events. So again, you are required to host the 9 kickback events throughout the year. You are required to meet the 750 participant requirement cumulatively across all of your events. So we understand that some events may be a little smaller, some may be a little bit larger, but we want to see that goal reached across all of the events. And then there will be a survey that we provide that you will have young people distribute at your events, and we're looking for a couple of satisfaction indicators at that event. So one is that attendees report feeling safe at the kickback event, and then the other is that attendees report feeling interested and engaged in activities, and those are both, the goal for both of those is 85%. All right, a few additional guidance. We've talked about these, but I'm going to say it again because I see we continue to have questions about them, and I'm sure that we will continue to. So again, you may only apply for a community strategy region in which you can demonstrate a physical address. You are advised to please use the link, and I'll show this on the next slide, that we provide multiple times within the RFP to verify that your location is within the community area that you apply for. So I cannot tell you how many folks last time around applied for a community area, and then we go ahead and geocode to ensure that you are in fact within that community area, and we found that they were not. I know, as Chicagoans, we understand that our idea of what a community area or a neighborhood is may be one thing, but the city of Chicago and this program are bound to those Chicago community area borders. So we really encourage you, before you do anything else, to ensure that the address that you're going to be applying for is within the community area that you are applying for. And then one more time, I will reiterate that multiple applications by the same agency will not be considered. And then also want to importantly note that this contract, like the majority of DFSS contracts, will be operated on a reimbursement basis. The former Safe Spaces program, as well as some other programs, do have advance options. There is no advance option for this program. So you will be asked in the application to ensure that you have the proper finances and systems in place to be able to operate on a reimbursement basis. All right, so this is just a little visual of what I was talking about. The link is here. Again, this link is in the RFP a couple of times. The logo is actually changed and now makes more sense. It's now like a, eyeglass. So when you go to this website, you see the little eyeglass, you put in your search for your address, and it will tell you the community area that your address is located within in terms of the Chicago community area. Okay, so now I'm going to go through our selection criteria. So these are the areas of the response that our reviewing team is going to be looking at in order to identify qualifications for our candidates. So our first area is community involvement. So we are looking for the respondent to demonstrate a clear understanding of the youth in the region you propose to serve, including their strengths and assets, as well as their needs and challenges. We're looking for the respondent to have developed specific capabilities in our infrastructure to better serve the proposed region and population. We are looking for a demonstrated commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access in internal operations. So that means respondents' leadership reflecting and or directly engaging the diverse people of the communities it serves. And then we are looking for the respondent to have either an existing or a planned process for gathering and incorporating youth and community feedback into planning, decision making, and service delivery. So Claire talked about this a little bit, but the importance of youth really driving these events and youth voice driving these events. So we really want to see that your organization is thinking about and has been thinking about ways that youth can have ownership over programming. The next selection criteria is organizational capacity. So here we're going to be looking for the respondent to have a plan to ensure that a qualified staff person responsible for program oversight and management is hired or reassigned from another position. We're going to be looking for, again, adequate systems to process and support necessary program expenses and monitoring program expenditures and fiscal controls. And in the case of this program, again, that includes some of that flexibility around event spending. So these may be different types of costs than your organization is typically involved with. So we need to, see demonstrated experience with being able to administer the types of costs that are required for this program. And then we're also looking for the respondent to have secure data collection and management practices, along with adequate processes for quality assurance and timely data entry. The next selection criteria is the strength of the proposed program. So we are going to be looking for respondents to clearly define services to be provided that are appropriate to addressing both the kickback event program requirements and performance measured in that RFP, as well as the paid youth program requirements and performance measures. We will be looking for prior experience with and a plan to continue with event outreach targeting the required audience. So like Claire said, if we're running these events and no one's showing up, or we don't have the teens and young adults showing up who they're intended for, then the program is not successful. So we really want to see experience with and a plan for outreach. And then we also want to see the respondent showing partnerships or coordination with other agencies to expand or improve services. And that applies both to the kickback events as well as providing, supports and wraparound services to young people who may be part of the program. Next selection criteria is performance management and outcomes. So we are looking for a respondent to demonstrate evidence of strong past performance against the desired outcome goals and performance metrics. So if you are a previously funded Safe Spaces or My Shine My Future delegate, that would be data from this program previously. If you are not, it would be data from a similar youth employment or events-based program, something else that shows your ability to, again, meet the activities and requirements of this program. And then we'll be looking again for demonstrated experience with collecting and analyzing data. So we really do ask our delegates to partner with us around looking at the data that we collect throughout the year for continuous quality improvement. And then in terms of reasonable cost, budget justification, and leverage of funds, again, we're looking for the respondent to have the fiscal capacity to implement the proposed program prior to reimbursement. So again, as a reimbursement-based program, we need to make sure that your fiscal controls are in place in order to ensure that that can be successful. And then the respondent should demonstrate reasonable implementation costs and funding requests given the nature of the program. So really that's ensuring that the budget that you propose aligns with the requirements outlined in the RFP. All right, there are a couple of attachments that will be required along with your application. So one is that you will be asked to attach the job description for the program coordinator. Again, in that activities and requirements section that Claire reviewed, there is a description of what the job requirements and experience for that program coordinator should look like. So you want to ensure that your job description is for someone either whether it's an existing employee or a job description looking for a new employee that aligns with those experiences required for this program. And then you will also be asked again to attach a budget for this program, and just ensuring again that all program requirements are addressed and that it doesn't exceed the total request that is available for this program. Okay, so I want to review briefly the actual evaluation process before we start to wrap up here. So the evaluation for this program is based on the strengths of the proposal and responsiveness to the selection criteria that I just outlined. Failure to submit a complete proposal or respond fully to all requirements, including attending oral presentations. So for this evaluation process, this is not the case for all DFSS programs, so be aware that select applicants will be invited to attend an oral presentation as part of their application process after the first written application review. And if you are asked to attend an oral presentation, it is required that you attend that in order to move forward in the process. You will receive questions ahead of time for the oral presentation and provided with a week's advance notice for those presentations. And again, we'll share more information about that for folks who become eligible for that part of the process. The Commissioner of DFSS, upon review of the recommended agency, has the discretion to reject, deny, or recommend agencies that have applied for grants based on previous performance and/or area need. More information about that is available in the RFP. And then finally, DFSS reserves the right to ensure that all mandated services are available citywide and provided in a linguistically and culturally appropriate manner. And then I'm going to wrap up with our selection and transition timeline. So it's not Monday, it's Thursday, but today we are doing our pre-proposal webinar. So I thank you for being here for that. The due date to submit any pre-proposal questions that you would want to be included or responded to is Thursday, April 16th. And then our applications for this RFP are due on Monday, April 20th at noon. There are absolutely, and we will say this many more times in the next slides, no exceptions to this. Things can happen, so definitely submit early, save often. Do not try to submit your application at 11:59 on April 20th. And then again, the program period for this RFP will begin on June 1st. So we have one more slide reiterating the deadline for this. And then before I turn it over to Jillian, who's going to go through the more technical aspects of applying for this program, we are going to go through and answer the questions that we have received and the questions that are still open. All right. So there are a lot of questions. I'm going to quickly go through and review the questions that have been answered. The questions will also be gathered into a Q&A that will be published as an amendment to the RFP. So these will be available for you to review after this, but I'm going to go through them again to make sure that all folks on the call have responses to these questions. Do our organizations need to provide employment directly to participants, or can we partner with other community agencies? So youth, as Claire mentioned, must be hired as employees by the funded delegate agency. They cannot be stipended. They cannot be paid in any other way. They are employees. Someone asked about the RFP for anchor organizations. The program that was formerly called Community Anchor Organizations will be coming soon. You will receive notification about that. If you receive notification about this RFP, you can apply for both the Safe Spaces program and that program. So those are two distinct programs. You can apply for both. Will proposals be considered if they're not in one of the community areas? No. So applications, and again, we will be geocoding all responses before they are reviewed. If you don't have an address within one of the eligible community areas, your application will be ineligible. If there is an issue with your address or we see something that's off, we may reach out to you for clarification before not reviewing your application, but please ensure that you have an address within one of the eligible community areas before applying. Do the events have to happen at the primary programming location? So no, events can happen anywhere within your community area. It's great if you have a program site where you can both host the youth employment component of your program and events, but it is not a requirement. If we have an existing paid job readiness program, can that qualify, or does a new curriculum need to be designed? No, this is a completely new program, so you would need to recruit and hire new youth who are specifically employed under the Safe Spaces model. There are, along with the program requirements and activities that are outlined in the RFP, we do a good deal of training and collaboration with you all around, curriculum design and what this program actually looks like. But this needs to be a distinct program from anything else that you are currently running. This person also asked what would classify as a kickback event. So any event that, is a public youth event that meets all of the requirements outlined in the RFP. So that's, the age of the audience, the location of the event, being a youth-focused event, the size of the audience. Those would be kickback events. These do importantly need to be also events that are specifically planned by the young people who are part of this program and for this program. So if you do, a turkey giveaway every year, you can't count that as one of your kickback events. We're asking you to actually plan and host new safe spaces events as part of this program and with this additional funding. If our organization wants to cover, there are a couple of examples, but 2 community areas, for example, can we submit one application for both since we have locations in each? So no, you will need to apply for one community area, or one community strategy region. And the application really does ask for you to be able to demonstrate a relationship with and experience with the young people in that community and with that community. So you need to identify one community area that you'll apply for and then move forward with that application. Our agency is located in the Loop, but delivers programming in the target community areas. Would that make us ineligible for this RFP? Yes, delegates must, again, have an address and conduct youth activities, meetings, and events within the region they apply to serve. And I may seem crazy answering all these questions over and over again, but we do continue to receive them over and over again. I know it's, again, sometimes tough because we feel like we are really connected to a community area, but we're really looking for those applicants that are deeply rooted in community and have spaces in those communities. So it is an important distinction. What documents are youth required to have to be hired as W-2 employees? So our basic requirements were outlined in the RFP. So again, that proof of Chicago residency, valid CPS or state ID card, a signed consent form, and then we, as part of your contract with us, you are ensuring that youth will be hired as employees. As part of that, you are aligning with federal and state labor laws. So we defer to you to ensure that young people are hired as employees, aligning with any laws that your other employees are aligned with. If my building site is not within one of the target communities, but the youth I serve are from one of the target communities, can you qualify for this funding? No, and we have gotten this question several times. So again, I will reiterate that your work site and programming site must have an address within one of the community areas. I'll also reiterate that we understand that, our sense of what a community area or a neighborhood is may be different than those Chicago community areas. However, our funding is tied to those restrictions and those borders. So again, please ensure that you are located within one of them. Someone has a question about payroll. Our agency administers payroll semi-monthly. Must youth employees paid bi-weekly, or can we pay them according to our pre-existing payroll schedule? I think those would be the same, but as long as youth are paid regularly and are aware of their payment schedule, you can use your existing payroll schedule if they're getting paid if your payroll schedule is to pay every 3 months or something, which I don't think is even legal. We would need to talk about that, but we just want to ensure that youth are paid regularly and that they can expect when their paychecks will come and that they will come at that time. Clarifying question. Youth in the community includes young people who attend school in the target area as well, not just area residents. Yes. So we do want to ensure that young people who are participating in your program are connected to that community, but we know that a connection to a community can look different, that young people, may move between community areas. So if a young person lives in your community strategy region, if they attend school there, if they do neither, but they spend all of their time there and that's really their community, we defer to you to determine exactly what it means for a young person to be, from your target community strategy region. But again, we just want to ensure that young people are not traveling across the city to be part of your program, because really this is about them being involved in their local communities and planning events for their local community areas. So someone asked about being involved basically in multiple organizations. So the co-founder of one organization, but the founder also of a new organization, can you apply for both? So without knowing all of the details, I think our blanket response for this is just that, in order to be eligible, and Jillian will get more into this, but to apply for one of our applications, you need to have the appropriate, nonprofit identification. So if you are applying as two independent nonprofits, we are not looking at, overlapping staff or founders or anything like that. But organizations would need to be independent nonprofits in order to apply. How many delegate agencies will be funded? 15. One for each of the community strategy regions. Our organization is an agency for Chicago Youth Works, which is our youth employment program. Can we also apply for this program? If we already host several youth events throughout the year, can any of those be counted? So I spoke to the second one. If you're already hosting an event, we don't want this to sort of just be tagged as a kickback event. We want these to be new events that are really planned in alignment with the requirements of this RFP. But yes, in order to answer to the first question, you are eligible to apply for this program, even if you are already funded under Chicago Youth Works or another DFSS or City of Chicago program, as long as the young people. And the next question is, can youth be dually enrolled in another OST in this program? Okay, so they cannot be, sorry, so I slightly misunderstood that. They cannot be enrolled in another youth employment program. So you can't have young people who are enrolled in Chicago Youth Works and also working under this program. If you have young people who are enrolled in an OST program where they are coming periodically for programming after school or something like that, they would likely be eligible to apply. We can discuss this, on a one-to-one basis based on need. But the important thing here is that we would not want young people to be dually employed under multiple programs by one agency. So our goal is to serve as many young people as possible. So we're really trying not to, double dip with those youth and have them be participating in multiple programs that are happening, especially if they're happening at the same time. That is not, they would not be eligible. How old must the program coordinator be? So we don't have a specific age requirement for this. They would need to be over 18. But we, encourage you to, again, look at those eligibility requirements and qualifications for the program coordinator and just ensure that they match all of those, but it's not necessarily determined by their age. Does the program coordinator have to be 100% dedicated to this project, or could it be someone whose role at the organization also includes other programming? Yes, so it's fine if you have someone who's already employed to your organization who wants to take on this program. However, they must have the capacity to dedicate the required number of hours to the Safe Spaces program. So, we don't want to come across the problem where this person is already working 35 hours a week. They can't take on, then the appropriate amount of hours that would be required to successfully implement this program. Will we be able to edit the event survey in case the youth determine additional data points they'd like to collect? So yeah, we can definitely discuss this. If folks are funded for the program, we again work with you closely to make sure that the data that you're collecting is useful both to us and to you. So if there's additional data beyond those performance measures that we're collecting that you would like to collect, we're happy to work with you to figure out how to best do that. Are people able to receive this funding from the grant if they're not in one of the specific target areas, even if they live in, for example, what is a high need community, essentially? So unfortunately, this grant is restricted to the 15 community strategy regions that we're funding. We understand and are not claiming that these are the only areas of need within the city, but these are the community areas that we are serving through this program at this time. Are students hired to put on the events, or are they employed at the agency in another capacity? And would they also have to put together the events and kickbacks? So the youth are hired specifically for this program. Their job, a large part of their job, is planning and hosting the kickback events. But they also may do other work. They shouldn't be doing other like administrative work as part of the organization. They may do other things that are, beyond the scope of just planning and coordinating events, but everything that they're doing as part of their work hours and the curriculum aligned with this program should, again, align with those goals of the Safe Spaces program as well as My Shine My Future. So again, we'll do trainings and provide additional curriculum supports for delegates who are funded under this program model. Is it the same youth for summer and fall and winter or different youth? So yes, we would encourage young people who enroll during the summer to stay on through the entire program period. So through the end of December, we understand that some young people may not be able to do that. Some young people may drop or join. So, it's totally appropriate for a young person to move out of the program and a new one to come in. But we are encouraging folks to, during that recruitment period, to look for young people who are interested in being part of the program for the whole year. So there's another question about the fact that it's not able to serve all young people who are at risk, who live in at-risk environments throughout the city. We understand, yes, this is true. We are not able to cover all areas of need across the city or all community areas across the city, but this is the scope of this particular RFP. We encourage you to look for other opportunities with DFSS or with the city that may cover your area of the city if this does not. All right, so there's another question about reiterating those program measures. 85% of 15 individual youths should complete 22 weeks of programming. So yes, when we say those 85% of youth, 85% of all youth. So yes, 85% of 15, a partial youth, but what essentially, basically that percentage of young people would, yes, complete the entire program. Will we receive a copy of this meeting? Yes, a copy of the webinar will be uploaded to the DFSS YouTube page, and you will receive a follow-up email if you registered or attended to this event with that information. Are the kickback events required for all organizations who have been awarded, or are they only required for larger scale organizations? So definitely, the kickback events are the key component of this program. So delegate agencies who are funded through this program must both employ young people and plan and host those events. And again, a majority of what those young people are employed to do is plan and host events. So certainly hosting those kickback events are a requirement for anyone who is funded under this program. There's a question. I will check if it has been clarified in the open questions from James Coleman. It looks like we needed a little bit of clarity in order to answer that question. How many youth need to be employed for how many hours total over the year? Again, I will refer you back to the RFP application. There are specific numbers of hours that we identify for young people to work. And then in terms of, limitations, we just always encourage you to, this is a very part-time role, but we encourage you to just ensure that you are aligned with local and federal labor laws in terms of employment. So this is not a full-time position. Young people should not be working, over a certain number of hours per day or per week. And we would defer to, again, labor laws in order to identify that response. There's another question from Lester McCarroll. If you want to check back on that and give us some clarity so that we can make sure that we can answer that. All right. Oh, I see that there was some clarity, perhaps, but again, maybe go back and you can feel free to ask the question again if you still don't have clarity on your question. Someone is asking again if the slides will be sent out. So the webinar, a copy of the webinar will be uploaded to the DFSS YouTube page where you will be able to see all of the slides. Is this a reimbursement program or advance? So this, as we stated during the presentation, is only operating on a reimbursement basis. No advances will be given. So again, the application will ask you to clarify your ability to run a program on a reimbursement basis. And we would encourage you to make sure that you are capable of that because, again, no advances will be given. What if your program site is not in the community that you live in? So not exactly sure if this means in terms of the staff, but As long as the organization that is applying for the grant has an address within one of the community areas that are eligible, then you are eligible to apply. And again, young people must either live in that community area, go to school in that community area, or have some other, demonstrated connection to the community area in which they are working or participating in the program. If we had a previous cycle with safe spaces, are those youth eligible to participate in this new cycle? Yes, young people who previously may have, if you were previously funded for the safe spaces program, and you were to receive funding again, young people who were part of the program previously could be re-enrolled as long as they are still within that 16 to 24 range and are again living or connected to the community area that you serve. Can the kickbacks also have a fundraising component for the organization? So no, these community must be free, open events to the community. The goal of these events is to provide young people a safe and fun place to be. So we cannot make the argument that that a fundraising component for your organization is critical to that. So no. Please elaborate the requirement on 750 youth across all programs. So this is a requirement that you reach 750 youth across all of the 9 kickback events. So Claire outlined, and you can see this in the RFP, a table that shows how many attendees we expect at each event. So it's approximately 50 for the teen and young adult events and 150 for those larger community events. Again, like I said, we understand that some events may be a little bit smaller or a little bit larger. So that's why we are asking you to reach that target attendance goal across all of your events, so that you don't have to worry again if an event has slightly larger or slightly lower attendance. There's a question about a specific community area if it falls into one of the regions. Again, Maria shared the link in the chat, and you can also find it multiple times in the RFP. Check there in order to determine which community area your address is in, and then check that against our table of community strategy regions to see if it is one of the areas served. Are youth going to pay for payroll taxes? So you will be required to employ young people as employees. The application budget that we provide includes a designation for FICA or for costs associated with that, but you are required to pay any taxes or withholdings associated with hiring young people as employees. So that should be considered in your budget application. Do we pay the youth and then are reimbursed, or is the reimbursement process just for programs and events? All program expenses, including youth pay, are on a reimbursement basis. So you will need to be able to pay young people prior to submitting reimbursement for those hours. This is why we ask delegates to pay young people on time and submit vouchers often so that you can so that you can get reimbursed in a timely manner for that. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple more questions and then I'm going to move on to Jillian so that you can stop hearing from me, take a little break, and then we will answer the remaining questions at the end of the program. So we have an existing OST program, essentially after school program, but not be paid. Can it be dual enrolled? So I spoke to this. I think I answered it, but again, just as long as their attendance is not being counted simultaneously in both programs, so we don't want them to be they can't be enrolled in 2 programs that happen at the same time, and they cannot be part of another paid program, then yes, they can be. But again, we would always encourage you to try to recruit new youth just because our goal is to serve as many distinct young people as possible. And then there's another question about this sort of double dipping. Would that apply to if we have an after school matters program? Yes, same thing. So we really, if they're already part of a different paid program at your organization, you should be hiring and recruiting new young people for part of the program. Okay, I will stop it there because we have new questions and answers coming in. I will turn it over to Jillian to go through our technical process, and then we'll go through the remaining questions at the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. My name is Jillian Black. I am the Procurement Proposal Coordinator here at DFSS, and I want to start with a couple of application tips. And our most important tip that we can provide is to start your application as early as you can. And while you're working on it, save it as often as you can. And if you have never done business with the City of Chicago, please register into iSupplier as soon as possible. Remember to review the RFP narrative and application questions closely. They align with the scope and the selection criteria. Please use the information in the RFP for guidance in formulating your answers. There is a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuations and spaces for each response. Each response, again, is allotted 4,000 characters. Please try not to use the back button on your browser. You could potentially lose your work. And again, we can't stress this enough to start your application as early as you can. You can submit your application and later amend it up into the due date of April 20th at 12 noon. However, we strongly suggest that you avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting your application early. Please plan on your submission taking approximately 30 to 60 minutes. Please make note that late applications cannot be accepted. For help, please make use of the e-procurement hotline at 312-744-4357. They also can be reached at customersupport@cityofchicago.org. Please note that the hotline operates during business hours only, which is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Just a few agency requirements. We require agencies to provide articles of incorporation and any amended articles of incorporation. We also require agencies to submit an IRS affirmation letter. Please note that this is for not-for-profit agencies only. The letter must be dated within 60 days of your submission. If you can obtain this letter by calling the IRS directly at 1-877-829-5500. However, if you are a for-profit agency, please submit your original letter from the IRS showing your FEIN number. Your UEI number is required in addition to the central contractor registration, which can be provided from the entity overview page on the SAM.gov website. And lastly, the certificate of good standing letter with the state of Illinois is required. We have a labor peace agreement ordinance, which applies to all DFSS and CDPH delegates that have 20 or more employees working for their organization. The only exemptions are hospitals. Contractor must provide written notice to the commissioner or her designee within 72 hours of becoming aware that employees want to organize or that a union seeks to represent employees. You may ask, what is a labor peace agreement? A labor peace agreement is an agreement between an employer and a labor union that ensures that an organizing drive is not impacted by union busting techniques, including employee retaliation, and in return, they will not strike or stop work in a way that would impact human services. For technical assistance, there is a link to the RFP of interest and training documents. Please see the alerts section on our website. And for questions on registration and e-procurement technical assistance for delegate agencies, please contact customer support at cityofchicago.org. They also can be reached at the help desk. The number is 312-744-4357. And we also have training materials, which includes documents and videos on our webpage, thecityofchicago.org, under online training materials. At this time, we're going to delve into how to enter your responses and accepting any amendments. Step 1 in entering your response. Select create quote from the drop-down menu in the actions box and then click on go. This will take you to the application page where you can get started. If the RFP you are interested in has been amended, and in this case it will be, you will need to acknowledge that amendment first and accept the amendment to start or submit your response. And to accept the amendment, you click on View Amendment History, circled here, step 1B. Next, to begin the acceptance and acknowledgement process, you must follow these steps after clicking View Amendment History. First, you click on the document number. Next, you click on the infinity or eyeglass icon to review the amended changes to the RFP. And then lastly, you click on the Acknowledge Amendments button to acknowledge receipt and understanding of the changes to proceed. And by acknowledging the amendment, you are indicating that you are aware of the changes made to the RFP in the amendment. When you see this screen, you click on the I accept checkbox, and then you click on Acknowledge. Then you click on Yes to indicate that you confirm the acknowledgement of the amendment. Lastly, you click on the checkbox that you accept the terms and conditions, and then click on Accept to accept the terms and conditions. And that is the final step in acknowledging and accepting the amendment. And once the amendment has been accepted, you can move forward with submitting your application. So when you are ready to submit, meaning that you've completed all required questions, you submitted all required documentation, you triple check everything, and you start by saving your draft one last time, and then you click continue. If you are missing information, you will be given an error message at the top of the screen, similar to what's circled here. Usually that error message directs it to something left undone in your application. So in the last example, the error message indicated that the lines found under the Lines tab had not been completed. In the example listed here, the error is about an unanswered question in the application or requirement section. The quote value refers to your, in this case, missing answer. So once your application is free from errors and you no longer have any red asterisks up at the top, you are ready to proceed and submit your application. And at that point, clicking continue should put your application into the review and submit phase. When you get to this screen, this is like a summary page, and this is also your last chance to review all of the data and to confirm that everything is accurate. So we strongly encourage you to please check your attachments and scroll to the bottom of the screen to review all of your responses. And at the very bottom of the screen, you will be asked to provide an electronic signature. Please be sure to fill in the signature before checking the box. And then you can finally click submit. And once you submit, you will receive a confirmation screen similar to what's on the page here. And the e-procurement system will also send a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. However, if you require confirmation prior to then, or if you don't receive your submission confirmation from e-procurement, please feel free to email me. My name is Jillian Black. Again, I'm the procurement proposal coordinator. My email is Jillian, JILLIAN.black@cityofchicago.org. And at this time, I'm going to pass it back over to Tess for the remainder of the questions.
Thanks, Jillian. Okay, I'm going to go through the additional questions that we have answered, and then a few more that are open. Do we have sample curriculums to give us an idea? So the information that we've shared in the RFP is the extent of information that we are sharing regarding the program requirements and activities at this time. So please take a look at that for any additional information, and contracted delegates who are awarded will go through training with us around more development of the actual program. Can faith-based organizations apply for this program? Yes, as long as you meet the contracting requirements that Jillian just spoke to, you can apply for the program. Can we offer jobs to those who have dropped out of school? We would like to know if they qualified. Yes, absolutely. So young people do not need to be enrolled in school in order to participate in the program. They just need to fit within the eligibility requirement in terms of location, age range, and then, being able to meet any other employment requirements for your organization. So we do not have requirements beyond that. What are the 15 regions for this RFP? So again, those can be found in this presentation, which will be shared on our YouTube, as well as in the RFP. And I just want to reiterate, this question comes much later, but I'll just say now, someone asked if they are able to view the RFP without having an account in eProcurement. Yes, we know that the City of Chicago websites aren't necessarily always the easiest to navigate, but if you look for the City of Chicago, and we can share this into the response or into the chat, procurement page, there is a section of open, RFPs for the city. You can look for the My Shine My Future Safe Spaces for Youth RFP, and then you will be able to click on that opportunity and view the PDF or download the PDF of the RFP. There's a little sort of icon that looks like a pair of glasses that allows you to view and download the PDF. So you can certainly view that without having to make an account in eProcurement first. Is there a minimum maximum number of students we need for this program? So we require that you have 15 young people enrolled in the program. That's the total max enrollment at all times. And then a follow-up question, if the budget allows, would we be able to serve more youth? So our budget does not allow for this because we need you to spend the additional budget dollars on paying your coordinator and event costs. If you have additional dollars that you want to allocate towards hiring additional youth, that's something that we may discuss with funded delegates, but our requirement is and cap is for 15 young people. During your previous program, the organization was required to pull from CitySpan. Will the recruitment process be the same? So we will ask you, you will be required to recruit all of the young people for your program. We at times are able to support in some ways by, connecting you to youth who may have applied for other programs that we have, but really the requirement is for you to recruit all youth from your community and have relationships with young people in your community. So that should be something that you are able to easily achieve. What about college students who go away in the fall? So really our goal is for young people, again, to enroll in the program who are able to stay on for the entire year. So when you recruit in the summer, you should be looking for young people who are able to stay on through the end of December. Again, we understand that there may be changes. You may have someone who ends up going to school or who leaves the program for another reason, and you can refill that slot. But that's really our goal, is that young people are able to, build those connections and maintain this work over a number of months. If I'm a smaller agency, if we'll need to get additional funding, will the city provide a letter of reimbursement? So I may need a little bit of clarity here, but just broadly, any additional funding that may be required by your organization in order to implement this program is the full responsibility of your organization, of the applicant. DFSS will reimburse only for program-related costs that are outlined in the RFP and in your contract. What types of internships or paid programs are allowed to be implemented? For example, strictly hourly based. So just to reiterate, this is a part-time paid program that is not, it's not a stipended program. Young people must be hired as employees, and they will be paid on an hourly basis as part-time employees of your organization. So they should not be paid under any other format such as stipends or gift cards or anything else like that. So if we fund the program, and then the organization is reimbursed for money spent. Yes. So as some of you who may not have been funded under this model before may not know, just for clarity, a reimbursement grant process, which is how DFSS manages our grants, requires the grantee to expend their own funds and any approved project costs, and then submit documentation such as invoices and receipts You'll submit vouchers to our finance department that includes justification for costs, and then you will get repaid for costs that are, justified and budgeted for the program. Will more than one award be given in any single community area? No. So one contract will be awarded for each community strategy region. So there will be 15. And then again, someone asked that question about whether they're able to view the RFP, and Maria has shared the link in the response there. So you can download the solicitation and view the PDF of the RFP at that website. Okay, someone asked a question about their proposal. Should we outline specific concepts for the kickback events, or should it focus exclusively on the framework used to lead you through their own design process? So I am not going to get too into this because it's very clear in the application what the questions are and what you should provide in your response. But it will ask you to describe your plan for hosting kickback events and just ensure that you are aligning your plan for kickback events with the requirements that are outlined in the RFP. So the youth curriculum can be anything that's career readiness, workforce training related, not admin work. So it's really not, the curriculum should be designed to achieve the goals of the Safe Spaces program. So I think what I was saying, and this may be a question about one of my responses, is that young people should be employed. Their primary goal is planning and hosting kickback events. So any work that they're doing should be related to that goal. So it may include, there are administrative tasks that are associated with that work, such as, data entry of surveys or, working on budgets and things like that. But also, canvassing, creating flyers for events, reaching out to vendors, and any trainings or things that are associated with those skills. So you may do a training around how to use Canva. You may do a training around canvassing for an event. You may do a training around, public speaking so that young people could speak at an event. So essentially, we just want to make sure that the work hours that are being utilized for this program are associated with the outcomes that we want to achieve through the program. So it's not a distinction necessarily about admin versus, work readiness, but more about, the content of what the young people are doing and the goals that they're trying to achieve. All right, a couple more questions that have been answered. How often can grantees voucher? So we encourage delegates to voucher monthly. The turnaround time depends. So ideally, within 30 days, but sometimes there are rejections or corrections that need to be made. Things take longer. There are periods, after budget revisions or at the end of the year when things get really clogged up at our finance team. So we ask you, that's why, we ask you to submit vouchers as often as possible within that monthly time period. And there was another question about that. How much are youth paid per hour? So we spoke to this, but again, youth should be paid minimum wage. The minimum wage increase for this summer has not yet been announced. So at the time that you submit, you should submit a budget for the current minimum wage. And then the budget that you submit with your application is not the final budget that you will be funded under if you are to be funded for this program. So folks who are awarded funding, we would work with them to create a final budget that aligns with the current minimum wage based on when the contracts begin. All right, so I believe that we have answered all of the questions. I will stay on for just a moment if there are additional questions folks want to drop into the chat as we are closing out right now. But again, if you have questions related to the content of the RFP, to the program, please direct those to myself. My email and phone are here. Email is going to be a lot more reliable, but my phone number is listed. And if there's something you want to talk through more at length, we can set up a time to speak if needed. And then again, if you have questions on registration, e-procurement, the support line and email address are there. Jillian also shared her information. The application deadline, again, is April 20th at noon, no exceptions. So please reach out before then. And this presentation will be shared to the DFSS YouTube channel, so you can find it there. The RFP is available at any time for you to view. And yeah, it doesn't look like we have any additional questions coming in. The questions that were answered during today's presentation, as well as additional questions that may come in through email, will be included in the amendment that is submitted for this RFP. So you will be able to review those responses. And other than that, Jillian, is there anything else that you would like to add before I see it? One last question that just came in. Can we partner with another organization? So the application should be submitted by one organization. I think Claire mentioned there would be opportunities through your events or other things to partner with other organizations. If you have questions specifically about a partnership in terms of applying, I would encourage you to reach out with more detail about what exactly you are thinking there. But yeah, applications should be submitted by one respondent, and they would be the lead for this program. Jillian or Maria, did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Just one last thing, the deadline for questions, if you didn't have a chance to ask your question today, or if you happen to think of something after the webinar wraps, the deadline for questions is Monday, April 6th at 5 p.m. You can direct those questions to Tess. Her contact information is listed on the screen here. And good luck. That's all I have.
One quick thing. I know we've lost quite a few people, but I highly encourage and recommend not just to read the application questions, but to read the actual RFP itself. As I have mentioned, and we've mentioned previously, a lot of the information that folks are asking about is in the RFP and very clearly outlined, and we don't want you to miss that opportunity. So please use that as your reference when you're answering the questions themselves. There is an extensive amount of information in the RFP itself. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.